Even if Government of India issues passport to non-citizens under exceptional circumstances, does it follow that those who got it because they were citizens lose their citizenship? Okay. Now, if we now start enumerating, finding out how many citizens are there, then we should stop talking about 1400 billion citizens. I can assure you, if the former army chief decides to enter into such talks, General Naravane is a very highly responsible army chief. He would not do it without India government's permission. In fact, India's very policy, I repeat, towards Pakistan needs a review. And what is interesting, intriguing, and funny is that both Marco and Vance claim that represent President Trump. And in my view, they are right. They both represent a part of President Trump. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, because, we are talking to different time zones, dear friends. My privilege once again. And as I said last time, let us try to make it a conversation. One way of making it a conversation is to send your comments to the email ID kpfabian@yahoo.com. Well, we have lots of themes to cover, time permitting. One is passport and citizenship. Talks in Colombo. Back channel between India and Pakistan? Question mark. The third, Iran-US, of course. The perennial. The fourth, Iran-India. Next, I was in Egypt for 2 days. Wish to tell you something about it. Now, let us start with the passport. You see, the word passport comes from Middle French, and its etymology is passer, Passer, means to step into or step across. Almost the same word as, in English, pass. Port, that means a port. Well, portus is Latin. It means the harbor or the gateway. Now, it is mentioned in Arthashastra, to get into the kingdom or get out of the kingdom, pass in and pass out. It is mentioned in the Bible, the book of Nehemiah, 5th century BC. But, what happened in 19th century, for long period, there was no need for passport. The migration, large-scale migration to the United States from Europe, the Irish potato famine and this and that, all happened without any passports. In fact, the very foundation of the United States, Mayflower, remember? 1620. No, they had no passports. They had a Bible with them. Now, World War One, issue of passport became more and more, prevalent. Now, what does the Indian passport say? I was thinking, Have you ever looked at your passport? Because if you look at it on page, the first inside page, permit me to read it out to you. These are to request and require in the name of the President of the Republic of India, all those to whom it may concern, to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance, and to afford him or her every assistance and protection of which he or she may stand in need. The last words, by order of the President of India. So that is what, the passport says. Now the question is the relationship between the passport and citizenship. I have issued passports to thousands of people in Madagascar, mainly Gujaratis, who were at that time apatrid, that is, they were stateless. They had gone from India, settled down in Madagascar, but the French government or the independent Malgache government did not accept them as citizens. So we, the embassy, on instruction from the ministry, used to ask them to fill up a form. And those forms were sent to the ministry, and then the ministry sent us instructions that persons A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on may be administered the oath of allegiance. And I used to administer this oath of allegiance, and it was in French, serment d'allégeance. And after that, they were issued passports. So there is a relationship, essential relationship between passport and citizenship. Of course, we can issue a passport, Government of India can issue a passport in exceptional circumstances, even to non-citizens. That again, let me tell you, I have done it. That was during the evacuation from Kuwait and Iraq, 1990, 91, when President Saddam Hussein foolishly decided to have a picnic in Kuwait. You see, what happened was that for the first flight, or taking out our people, that was an IL-72, in which Foreign Minister Gujarat, my boss, Additional Secretary Muna Khosla, and I had gone. So, an Indian origin American citizen, I forget his name, he was a Menon. He incidentally was one of the highest paid Indians in India. And he told me that he was scared to get out of the embassy because he had an American passport. So he wanted to get out of, Kuwait, and then, of course, get back to the United States. So I consulted Foreign Minister Gujarat, and we issued him a passport. But then we did something. It was a temporary passport for 10-day validity, and there was an observation: this passport will not be renewed unless in consultation with the Embassy of India, Kuwait. The idea was that I told Mr. Menon, listen, this is a temporary passport to take you to India. I want you to surrender this passport on the day you reach there, or the next day, immediately, I mean, and let me know, because that was done under exceptional circumstances. So, to go back to logic, even if Government of India issues passport to non-citizens under exceptional circumstances, does it follow that those who got it because they were citizens lose their citizenship? Does it follow that they have to produce another proof of their citizenship? It doesn't. It doesn't. After all, even the government has to follow logic. Well, now, if the government wants to... Now, again, let me explain another exception. That is, suppose somebody had got a passport by making false declarations. Well, naturally, once we get to know, we meaning the Government of India, it will be investigated and the passport will be declared invalid. But in most cases, it is only the passport that is declared invalid. He or she doesn't lose the citizenship, because that's a different process. Okay? Now, if the intention is to leave it to the ECI, Election Commission of India, to decide who is a citizen, who is not a citizen, I'm sorry to say, that will be, to put it simply, diminishing India's democracy. And that should never happen. The Prime Minister eloquently speaks about 1400 billion Deshavasiyo. Obviously, he means they are citizens. This is, when he addresses international gatherings, is he speaking of the citizens and non-citizens in India? Is he speaking of the diplomats in India? No. Foreign diplomats. He is speaking only on behalf of the citizens of India. Okay? Now, if we now start enumerating, finding out how many citizens are there, then we should stop talking about 1400 billion citizens. Sorry, it's not 1400 billion. It is 1400 million. That is 1.4 billion. My apologies. So, we should, the Prime Minister should stop speaking of that. Talks in Colombo. Last time we spoke about back channel, front channel with Pakistan, and we raised the question, why not the front channel? Well, now reports have appeared that some back channel talks have taken place in Colombo, in the sidelines of some conference which some Indians were attending, and two names have been mentioned. I have no corroboration. One, of course, is General Naravne, and the other is Sri Ram Madhav, a very prominent BJP leader, RSS also, RSS leader. Now, I can assure you, if the former army chief decides to enter into such talks, General Naravne is a very highly responsible army chief. He would not do it without India government's permission. Okay? Now, out of prudence, he may not, propagate, announce the whole world, hey, I've got India government permission. That is different. He has also discretion. And so I take it, Government of India knew about it, and Government of India permitted it, and Government of India wanted it. I could be wrong, because Foreign Secretary says that the Government of India doesn't take cognizance of it. Now, what does it mean? That means, these talks can take place, but as far as Government of India is concerned, it's not relevant. But I have some doubts whether the foreign secretary is not being too diplomatic, I suppose, as he is required to be. And I repeat, it is necessary to have back channel and front channel conversation. In fact, India's very policy, I repeat, towards Pakistan needs a review, because till now, India has been following the policy of projecting Pakistan as the epicenter of terrorism. But we have not succeeded in convincing the rest of the world. So let us sort of, introspect and quietly see what has gone wrong, what has gone right. And this review, as I had earlier said, it should need not be announced. It should be done discreetly. Now, next topic, Iran, US. Well, we were all glad when the Memorandum of Understanding was signed 17th by President Trump at Versailles. Now, is it going to be a memorandum of misunderstanding? Well, what has happened is that one or two ships disobeyed instructions from the Hormuz Management Authority and the IGRC. They fired on the ship, and then the Central Command retaliated by bombing sites in Iran. And in retaliation, Iran sent drones or missiles to Kuwait and Bahrain. Mark, no missiles were sent to UAE or Saudi Arabia or to Oman, but only to Kuwait and Bahrain. Why? Well, GCC is a little divided within itself. Some members, especially Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and now UAE, want to have a modus vivendi, living in peace with Iran. At one time, UAE had wanted America to smash Iran to smithereens. But then UAE had second thoughts, and it released $3 billion of Iran's frozen funds. Okay. Now the latest is that Trump says that Iran has begged for a meeting and that the two delegations will meet in Doha today, that is Tuesday. Of course, if Trump meant by Tuesday, American Tuesday, well, then we still have to wait. And we hear that Kushner, Jared Kushner, the son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff, the golf-playing real estate tycoon, friend of Trump, they are on their way to Doha. Now, and Iran, meanwhile, says that it has not agreed to any such talks. Now, my guess is that there will be talks, but Iran is playing hard to get it, and probably Iran wants release of its frozen funds, and probably this time Qatar may do it, and President Pezeshkian has said that $6 billion will be released. So there you are. Now, why is it that there is the risk that MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, might turn into a Memorandum of Misunderstanding? That is because my view is that Iran is clear. It wants a negotiated settlement, though it announces that it is prepared to fight also. That is necessary because with Trump going on saying that he will destroy Iran, well, Iranian leadership also has to, tell its people that it is ready to fight, ready, willing, and able. And Trump, frankly, between you and me, has no option. That is, he has no military option. He has only, the diplomatic option. But at the same time, we know that Netanyahu doesn't want any diplomatic option to be pursued. He wants war, 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 war. And there are people in America, some people, supporting Netanyahu. Now, there again, what is interesting is that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he is very hawkish. And he makes statements which are illogical. He says that the Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway, and no way can Iran charge any tolls and all that. But if you read the memorandum, and we may take it, the Secretary of State had the time to read it, it clearly says that Iran and Oman, in consultation with the regional states, will arrange for the management. You see, the strait falls in the territorial waters of Oman and Iran. To say that it is an international waterway just because international shipping passes through it, no, bad logic. Sorry, Secretary of State. Now, Vice President Vance is pursuing the diplomatic line. And what is interesting, intriguing, and funny is that both Marco and Vance claim that represent President Trump. And in my view, they are right. They both represent a part of President Trump. In other words, a part of President Trump wants to pursue diplomacy. Then there is another part of President Trump who thinks that by threatening military action, not by actually undertaking military action, but by threatening military action, Iran will concede more at the diplomatic negotiations table. I'm sorry to say, Mr. President, that is not a true reading of the Iranian psyche. As I've been saying all along, America has more air power than brain power. So let America's brain power be increased, and the only way to do it is to know your adversary. Just as we say KYC, know your client. For that, one has to read up their history, their religion, their culture, and all that. Now, I'm not saying that the president himself should read it, but the American Foreign Service is professional. They have got Iran specialists. Any day, if you just ask them, they will produce. But the point is, they have been sidelined. That is a tragedy. Now, Iran, India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was invited by President Pezeshkian to attend the funeral ceremonies of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now, it is reported, not officially confirmed, at least according to today's newspapers, that our governor in Bihar, Hasnain, Lieutenant General, and MOS, Minister of State, Margarita, they too will go to represent India. Well, I had argued to ANI and other channels that if his schedule doesn't permit the Prime Minister to go, then he should at least send Vice President of India, as was the case, when the previous president of Iran died in a helicopter accident. You see, I want to move on to something which I may not have mentioned, and that is that I just gone to Iran, to Egypt, and I went mainly to see the museum. This is something fantastic, and there is so much we in India have to learn, because this was constructed at a cost of 10,000 crores of rupees, $1 billion. I'm simplifying it, because rupee may be 95 or 96, but it's easier to calculate if it is 100. Not that I want to make it 100 or want to see it 100, but easier calculation. Now, the Japanese sort of gave a long-term low interest loan, and this covers Egypt's history from 5,500 BC to 364 AD. I have some photos which I will show you later. Now, the museum is amazing. The way they have designed it, the description is there. It is written at 4 different places. You know what I mean? So that more people can see it. 20,000 people on an average visit it, and there are 170,000 objects. So India should have also a good museum. After all, what do you have to show about the Indus Valley civilization? Tell me. Okay, now I had another thought when I went to Egypt, that was to check on what the Bible says about Jesus's baby Jesus being taken to Egypt by Joseph and Mary. Now, when I checked with priests in India, they tell me, well, we have 4 Bibles, and Saint Matthew speaks about it, others don't. So we do not know. Well, I don't think that is a proper historical approach. So I asked our ambassador, Suresh Reddy, who was kind enough to arrange for me a visit to the Hanging Church, which was constructed in 4th century AD. See, what happened was that when Constantine the Great converted himself into Christianity, his mother, Helena, in fact, she is a declared saint, Saint Helena. She asked Roman scholars to find out which route Joseph and Mary might have taken from Bethlehem to Egypt. And they sort of did the necessary research, and I was shown, and I will show you that also, the route taken. And I was taken to one of the routes in Egypt and shown the place where Jesus was sleeping. So that was something most remarkable. Now, one important point. Apart from the scholarly father who received me, he sort of passed me on to a young lady, Irene, who explained everything. And can you imagine? She had done a 4-year university course in order to be a tourism guide. In Egypt, you can be a tourism guide properly only after doing 4 years. Do we have that in India? If not, let's do something about it. It's only something to learn from the wider world, isn't it? Even the Vishwaguru can learn. In fact, a guru who stops learning is no guru. Now, I mentioned about our embassy. Our embassy is very active. In fact, I was at the, very prestigious residence, India House, where the ambassador and Madam Reddy invited me, and the two third secretaries also were there. You can see the photo, you know, and I got briefed about Indo-Egyptian relations by the ambassador, who incidentally, his previous posting was in Brazil, and he did a lot of Sherpa work for G20 and other, international organizations. Now, I just want to say a word about the Ram temple. There have been allegations of financial irregularities. And what has the Supreme Court said? It says that heavens won't fall because some, public interest litigations wanted CBI inquiry. Yeah, the Supreme Court, with the highest respect, I say, is always right. Heavens won't fall. Absolutely right. But we should all bear in mind that our people's trust in the ability of India's democracy to correct itself promptly will be impaired if prompt action is not taken by the judiciary in the matter. You see, above all, India is a self-correcting democracy. In fact, there is no perfect democracy. But the beauty of India is that when one organ of the government, say the executive, overreaches its powers, it does something which is wrong, then either the judiciary or the legislature should step in. And that is self-correction. And that we should never, never lose. Now, the last point. And that is about Justice Muralidhar. Justice Muralidhar was, in fact, I wanted to show you this. It's in the Indian Express today. The article says, the heading says, India should know if we don't act on evidence against Israel, we can't redeem ourselves. What the justice, who chaired a UN commission is saying is that Israel has been targeting children, Palestinian children, and killing them. And it has already killed 20,000. And the killing continues. Why? If you kill a child, the child won't grow up. So, so many generations you are killing by killing the child. After all, child is the father of man. Isn't it? So this is genocide. Israel has been doing it. Israel is doing it. It is for India as a good friend of Israel to tell Israel to stop it, not by making a public statement, but, diplomatically. And if India does it diplomatically, will Israel listen? Well, at least there's a chance Israel will sit down and introspect. Even India is saying. Of course, there is arrest warrant against Netanyahu issued by the ICC. Now, Netanyahu, to my mind, reminds me of Macbeth. Only thing is that he has played double character. On the one hand, he is Macbeth. On the other hand, he is also Lady Macbeth, who, after Duncan's killing, she started sleepwalking. She lost her mind. And she says, will all the perfumes of Arabia sweeten this little hand? Because, it was dripping with blood. She saw blood. Now, if Netanyahu thought that he would be able to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia and get the perfumes of Saudi Arabia for any reason whatsoever, sorry to say, he got it wrong. Dear friends, thank you for lending me your ears. Next week,